So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA GCSE Maths paper of June-November 2021, Foundation Paper 3, which is a calculator paper. Now, as always, I'll include a link to the paper for you to have an attempt at before watching this video and go through the answers, and include a question breakdown so you can see that if there are any questions that you came unstuck with or couldn't do or struggled with, you can see what topic it relates to. And I'll also include the grade boundaries for not only this individual paper but the overall grade boundaries for the 2021 Foundation paper series, so you can see what mark you've got both individually and overall. So let's get started on this final paper of the June-November 2021 Foundation series. So looking at question 1, it says solve 4 plus x equals 12. So what plus 4 gives us 12? Well, the correct answer is going to be our third option, which is x equals 3. For question 2, it says circle the largest number. Now, as you can see, we've got 4 options, all with different amount of numbers after the decimal point. So what you want to do is look at which number's got the highest number of numbers after the decimal point, which here is 4, which is our first number. So then we rewrite all the other numbers so they've all got 4 digits after the decimal point. Now, if there aren't enough digits, we just add zeros. And then once we've done that, all we're doing is comparing the 4-digit number after the decimal point and then circling which of those 4-digit numbers is the biggest. So here we can see it's going to be 5,600, so it's going to be our last option. Question 3, it says circle the expression that means half the value of x. Well, that's going to be half of x, which is the same as x over 2. Question 4, it says circle the value of 10 to the power of 6, and that is going to be 1 million. Again, if we start off with 10, so that's going to be 10 to the power 1, 10 to the power 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is the digit of 1 million. Moving on to question 5, it says complete the bank statement. And so here we've got credit, which is where you add, and debit, with which we take away. So here we're going to have £670.43 plus 2,156 and 75 pence. So we type that into our calculator and you should have the correct answer of 2,827 and 18 pence. Then we take away this from that. So if I just add that, we get that. And then if we take away £48.97 from our previous balance, we should have the answer of 2778.21. And then what we then need to do is take away these two numbers. So it's going to be 2778.21, take away 1642.49, and that gives us an answer of 1135.72. Moving on to question 6, it says put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6 into the circle so that each line of 3 numbers multiplies to give you 12. The total of the vertical line is more than the total of the horizontal line, and it says use each number once. So for this, all we need to then do is to make sure that 1 goes in the middle. Then for our numbers going up vertically, that's either going to be 6 and 2, and you can write 6 and 2 in any order, from either having the 2 at the top and 6 at the bottom, or 6 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And we've got 4 and 3 on the horizontal ones, so this can either be 4 or 3. That one's going to be 4 or 3. This is going to be 6 or 2. That's going to be 2 or 6. And again, remember, you can only have each number once, and 1 needs to go in the middle, so that the vertical adds up to 9 and the horizontal numbers add up to 8. So moving on to question 7, it says point A is 270 meters above sea level, point B is 145 meters below A, and C is 59 meters below sea level. And the question is asking how much higher is point B to point C. So for this here, let's mark where A is going to be. So A, if we imagine this is 217, this distance here, then that is where A is going to be. Now, it says that point B is 145 meters below A. So this distance here, 145, and that is where B is going to be. And C, it says, is 59 meters below sea level. So that there is going to be 59. these things are not to scale, and that's going to be so. Now what the question's asking is, what is this distance here going to be? So for this, what we first of all need to do is to work out where B is on this sort of scale of where the sea level is. And so this point here is going to be 217 minus 145. And if I do that on my calculator, I should get an answer of 72. So this marking here is 72. Then to work out what this distance here is going to be, well, that there is 72. And this distance here is 59. So then I just simply add those two numbers up. And so 72 plus 59 gives me an answer of 131 meters. Then moving on to question 8, it says here are 4 number cards, 2, 5, 6 and 8, and it says use each card once to make the calculation correct. And now there's several answers you could have. So I'm going to go for 5 plus 6, take away 8, take away 2. So other options you could have that give you the correct answer, and it's going to be 5, 6, 2, 8. You could have 5, 6, 8, 2. You could have 6, 5, 2, 8, or you could have 6, 5, 8, 2. So any of those would be absolutely fine. Obviously I've gone for the second option in that list, but either of those, as long as it's correct, you'll get the one. Moving on to question 8b, it says list all the possible, so it says 2 cards are chosen at random, list all possible pairs of cards, 2 have been done for you. So for this, all we need to do is just fill in the numbers. So here we've got, now again you could do in any order, but you should recognize that there should be 12 options altogether, so you need to write the other 10 options. So here you could have 5, 6, 6, 5. Your next one's going to be 6, 8, and again these could be in absolute any order. 8, 6. You could have 2, 8, and then 8, 2. So all I've done is pick 2 numbers and then switch them around. And you always want to kind of have a system. So I've got 5, 8, 8, 5, and then 2, 6, and 6, 2, which I think they've just about fit there. So let me just move that down. 6, 2. Put those out. Now, alternately, what you could do is do it outside. So you could have, what I tend to do is if I write down the numbers 6 and 8, I start off with 2, 5, and then all the 2s. So that's one set. Then 5, 2, 5, 6, 5, 8. Then 6, 2, 6, 5, 6, 8. And then 8, 2, 8, 5, 8, 6. And you can see there you've got 12 options. 2 with them have already done. But again, that should be absolutely fine. Depending on if you go outside the grid or inside the grid, this should allow it. But you'll be writing 10 new ones. You do not want to be repeating any because they could lose you marks. Moving on to question 8c, it says write down the probability that the first card is even. So from the 12 options we have together, what are the how many are starting with an even number? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's going to be 9 out of a total of 12, which simplifies to be 3 over 4. And I would say for 1 mark, any of those, whether it's the simplified version or the original version, is going to be fine for that 1 mark. Moving on to question 9, it says School A has 72 tutor groups, each group has 28 students. School B has 16 tutor groups, each group has 18 students. Show that the number of students at School A over the number of students at School B is a whole number. So first of all, let's work out how many students there are in each of those schools. So for School A, that's going to be 72 times 28. So 72 times 28, which is 82. So 28, and that comes up to a total of 2016. And for School B, I do exactly the same, but this time for 16 times 18. And again, on the calculator, that gives me an answer of 288. So then I'm going to substitute those into this fraction. So I've got 2016 over 288, and on the calculator, that equals 7, not 4. Which is a whole number. There we go. Moving on to question 10, it says boxes of chocolates each contain 25 chocolates. 1 box It costs £3.25. A shop has a special offer, 2 boxes equals £5. How much cheaper per chocolate is this special offer? So for this, let's have a look at this. So we're going to fill £3. So for 1 box, it's going to be £3.25 divided by 25 chocolates. And if I type that into my calculator, I get the cost of 13p per chocolate. Then if I do the offer, well, here it's going to cost me £5, but I'm going to be getting 50 chocolates. And that comes up to a total of 10p per chocolate. So therefore, the difference per chocolate is going to be 13 minus 10, which is 3. Moving on to question 11, it says, in a game, the player going first uses crosses and the player going second uses circles. To win the game, a player must get 3 crosses or 3 circles together in a line. Here is the position in a game. It said it is Amy's turn to put a cross in the grid. If she wins if she puts a cross in B3. Write down all the other squares where she could put a cross to win the game. So let's have a look at what she's done. So she's put a cross in B3, so that's going to be there. So we're looking for drawing crosses of where all the other squares in which she could place to win. So she could put it there, she could put it there, she could put it there, and I believe, and she could put it there to win. So all those pink sort of coordinates. So it's going to be B2, it's going to be E3, it's going to be C5, and it's going to be D5 are the options you could have. Then in Amy goes first in the next game. Assume that she will choose a square at random. Write down the probability that she puts her first cross in the square F6. Well, how many F6s are there? Well, there's 1. And how many squares are there altogether? Well, there are 36. Then says for C, in fact, Amy decides to put her cross into a corner square. What does this mean about the probability that she will put her first square in F6? Tick a box. Well, as there's only 4 corner pieces and F6 occupies one of those 4, the probability of F6, knowing it's going to be in a quarter, is going to be 1 out of 4. So the actual answer we should have is that it's going to be greater than the answer for part B. And the reason for this is because 1/4 is bigger than 1/36. So something along those lines would be fine to get you that single mark. Then for question 12, it says the dolphin and whale are drawn to scale. The actual length of the dolphin is 3 meters. Estimate the actual length of the whale. So for this, what we need to do is to know that this is 3 meters. So what we want to do is to measure the length of the dolphin. So here, if I just write down the instructions, because obviously this is dependent in what size paper you've printed this question on, whether it's A4 or whether it's going to be in A5, which I know a lot of schools tend to do when they're giving printing out past papers. So I'll write down the instructions and I'll give you a range of values that would be acceptable to get the 2 marks. So what you need to do first is measure the dolphin, then measure the whale. Oh, don't T there, so we get rid of that. Measure the whale, and then what you want to do is then the measurement of the whale divided by the measurement of the dolphin. And then what you then want to do is multiply that by 3. So what this fraction is basically doing is telling you how many times bigger the actual whale is compared to the dolphin. And because the dolphin is 3 meters, we multiply that by 3. Now here, the correct answer, depending on your measuring skills, is any answer between 10.6 to 13.7. So as long as your answer looks something like that, that should be absolutely fine. Moving on to question 13, it says work out the area of the triangle. Well, the area of a triangle is the base times the height divided by 2, or half base times height, whichever you prefer. So for this, it's going to be 9.8 multiplied by 2.6 divided by 2, and that should give you an answer of 12.74. Then moving on to question 13b, it says the circle has a radius of 11.5. Work out the area of the circle. So here the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. So that's going to be pi times 11.5 squared. If you type that into your calculator, you can either write your answer in terms of pi, which is 529 over 4 pi, or as a decimal, it's going to be 415.5, and that's to 1 decimal place. Moving on to question 14, it says that a machine takes 4 seconds to fill a packet of crisps. In total, how many packets can 35 of these machines fill in 8 hours? So for this, what we need to do is look at 8 hours, and that equals 480 minutes. And so what we then do, we need to convert that into seconds. So we times that by 60. That by 60 to get from hours to minutes, and that gives us 28800. So from this, what we then need to do, that's in seconds. So then from this, what we then need to do is divide that by 4, because it's 4 seconds. And so what we do is we then get an answer of 7,200. Now it says that we've got 35 machines, so I then need to multiply that by 35, and that will give me an answer of 252,000. And that's how many packets can be filled by those 35 machines in 8 hours. 14b then says each packet of crisp contains 32.5 grams of crisps. At what rate does the machine put the crisps into packets? Give your answer in grams per second. So for this, we've got 32.5 grams. And so if we divide that by 4, because obviously we're looking at 4 seconds, it comes up to an answer of 8.124 grams per second. Moving on to question 15a, it says complete the table of values for x squared minus 2. So for this, all we need to do is substitute the x value into this formula. So this box here is going to be minus 3 squared, take away 2. Now if you're using your calculator, please do remember to put your negative numbers in brackets. And so here we get basically minus 3 times minus 3 is 9, take away 2 gives me 7. Then for this one here, that's going to be 2 squared, take away 2. 2 squared is 4, take away 2 is 2. And then 3 squared, take away 2 is going to be 7 again. Then from this, what we then need to do is plot those coordinates. So at minus 3, it was at 7. So that's going to be that there. At minus 2, it's at 2. At minus 1, it is at minus 1. At minus 2, it's 0. And then it slowly mirrors and reflects, which we've got something that looks like this. Now the next thing you then need to do is to, as accurate as you can, is to join those points up to try and make a nice smooth curve, which I'll be honest, that is better than I would have expected. And as long as you're going from those values of minus 3 to 3, that should be good enough for you to get the 2 marks for the sketching. For question 16a, it says towns A and B are shown on the centimetre grid. What does the shaded area represent? Well, for this, it's going to be loci. And so if 1 centimetre equals 10 miles, then it's going to be 2 squares is going to be 20 miles. So it's all the points within 20 miles of A, which is our 4th option. Then for question 16b, it says complete an accurate drawing of the triangle PQR so that the angle of QPR is 53 and the length of the side PR is 7.5 centimeters. Now again, this is going to be incredibly difficult to do on the computer, but what you need to do first is set your protractor so that it's the center of it is on P, and what you then want to do is using the numbers starting at 0, you want to climb up to 53 degrees. Then once you've got that side of 53 degrees, let me just try and do that as accurate as possible. And let me use a different color. Is once you've marked 53, you then want to draw a line, projection line, and so that this angle here is 53 degrees. Then what you then want to do is with your ruler, is measure from 0 at point P is measure 7.5 centimeters and put a little mark next to it. And then once you've made that mark, what you then want to do is with your ruler is then complete the triangle from that mark and join it up with Q. So it should look something vaguely similar to that. Then moving on to question 17, it says multiply out the brackets. So here we've got 5 times, so you multiply numbers with numbers, letters with letters. So 5 times 3 is 15, x times x is x squared. Then we've got a minus, 5 times 2 is 10, but I've got that x also, so it's going to be 15x squared minus 10x. Moving on to question 18, it says the scatter diagram shows the age and value of some cars in 2019. All the cars were the same make and model. And question 18a says what type of correlation does the scatter graph show? Now for 1 mark, the type of correlation it's looking for 1 mark is basically either going to be positive, negative or no correlation. You don't need to go on the strength, but if you did, you wouldn't lose any marks as long as it was correct. But the correct answer we should write is negative. Now, if the question was worth 2 marks, then you would get a mark for commenting on the strength. But when it's only worth 1, it'll be fine just to say positive, negative, or no correlation. Then for 18b, it says write down the value of the car that was an outlier. So what we're looking for is the value of the car that was the outlier. So if I go back to this, which point stands out? Well, it's going to be this one here. And what is the value of that car? Well, it's going to be 4,000. So I write down 1,000 there. It then says part C, use the graph to estimate the value of a new car of this make and model in 2019. So that's when the age is 0 years. So we're looking at this value here. That's for part C. And I would say that that answer there is going to be around 15,000. So just try and, as long as you're reading it off correctly, but I would say it's roughly around 15,000. Then says a car of this make and model had a value of 5,600 in 2019. Use the graph to estimate the year in which it was made. So what we need to do here is go back to our graph. We need to try and find 5,600. So 5,000 is going to be about there. And I would say 600 is somewhere going to be in between. So from this, what I then need to do is accurately to draw a line from 5,600 like so, and then once it hits a line, I then want to move downwards, and so a car that's now worth 5,600 is roughly around about 7 years old. So from this, what I then need to do is take away that answer from 2019, so it's going to be 2019 take away 7. Now it's always worth, whenever you're working with scatter diagrams, always make sure that you are marking the straight lines on your graph to get those sort of method marks in working out. So I've got 2019 take away 7, which is 2012. Moving on to question 19, it says here is a triangle and a rectangle. It says A and B are positive numbers. Which shape has the large perimeter? You must work out the expression of both perimeters. So let's have a look at this. So first of all, let's work out the perimeter of the triangle. Now to work out the perimeter, it's just all the sides added together. What's going on there? So the perimeter of the triangle, so that's going to be 5a plus b plus 4a plus 7b plus 2a plus 3b. Now if I collect all my like terms together, I should have an answer of 11a plus 11b. Then if I do the same with the perimeter of the rectangle, then what I've got is I've got 4a plus 2b plus 4a plus 2b, because I've got 2 of each side, plus a plus 4b plus a plus 4b. Now if you wrote those 4 sides in any different order, that's fine. It's all about collecting the like terms correctly, in which I should have 10a plus 12b. Now what I want to do is compare these two values. So is one bigger than the other? Well, the problem is the perimeter of the triangle has got 11 a's, but the perimeter of the rectangle has got less a's. However, the perimeter of the triangle's got 11 b's, but the perimeter of the rectangle has got 12 b's. So without knowing the sizes of A and B and which of those two is bigger or smaller, it's difficult to determine which of those two shapes has the bigger rectangle. So for this, the option we need to tick is that we cannot tell. Moving on to question 20, it says the nth term of a sequence is 19 minus 4n, and it says write down the smallest value of n that gives a negative value. So here, if we look at our first term, then that's going to be when n equals 1. So that's going to be 19 take away 4, which is going to be 15. Then for the second term, I'm just going to be taking away 4, so that's going to be 11. The third term is going to be 7. The fourth term is going to be 3. And the fifth term is going to end up being negative 1. So what's the smallest value of n that gives a negative term? Well, that's going to be when n equals 4. It then says for question 21, what is the name of the longest possible chord in a circle? And if you remember what a chord is, it's basically a straight line that goes from one end of the circumference to another. So the biggest it could be is going to be the diameter. Moving on to question 22, it says the number of people living in a town is 47,000 to the nearest 1,000. Which of these is a possible number of people living in the town? Well, if it's rounded up to the nearest 1,000, then the population is going to be between 47,000 or 6,500 to 4,750. Now with this, what we then need to do is see which of these numbers falls into that category. Now for this, it is going to be our second option, and the reason for that is this one is outside that range. This one is not valid because the population can't equal that, because that would be rounded up to then 48,000, so that's not going to be correct, and nor is that one, so the correct answer is going to be the second option. Moving on to question 23, it says Jeff and Kaz share £270 in the ratio of 2.6 to 1. How much more than Kaz does Jeff get? So here, if we work out the two amounts, so here, let's work out what one part is. So for this, we do 270 divided by the total sum of ratios, which is 3.6. And where I've got 3.6 is from 2.6 plus 1. And that comes up to a total of 75. So each part is 75. So Jeff is then going to have 2.6 parts times 75, which gives me an answer of £195. Then Kaz has 1 times 75, and that is £75. So then from this, and just get rid of that little bubble, because it looks a bit weird. And so what we then need to do is work out the difference. And the difference between those two amounts is £120. Moving on to question 24, it says here are two rectangles, and it says show that the two rectangles are similar. Now, if they are similar, then the scale factor of each of these corresponding sides should be in the same scale factor. So if we divide the two heights, let's say, of these shapes, so here we've got 2.8 divided by 3.5, or the other way around, and then we just work that out on my calculator. So 2.8 divided by 3.5, and that gives me an answer of mess it up, calculator, and that gives me an answer of 0.8. I then do the same. So here I've got the smaller shape, which is 40, over the longer length, which is 4 over 5, and that also equals 0.5. So as you can see, as these two numbers are the same, so therefore the rectangles are similar. For question 25, it says the equation of the straight line is 2y equals 6x plus 8. Circle the gradient of the line. Well, to work out the gradient of a line, we need to make y equals. So what we need to do is divide everything by 2. So get y equals 3x plus 4. And the gradient is the number next to x, or how many x's we've got. So the correct one we should circle is 3. Moving on to question 26, it says at a country park there is a house, a museum and a garden. The table shows prices per person to visit the park. On one day, 480 people visit the park, 67 visit the garden only, 40% visit the house and museum, and 3/8 visit the house only. The rest visit the museum only. In total, how much do 480 people pay to visit the park? You may use your Venn diagram to help you, in which we've got a Venn diagram here. So let's first of all work out how many people are going to each of these areas. So here we know that 67 is going here. So let's just, on this table, if I just write visitors and let's write the total price, like so. Two bad straight lines. So from this, we know that 67 visit the garden only. So that's going to be 67, but that's free. So the total price is going to be 0. And then we need to work out 40% of 480. So 40% of 480. Well, I can do that by doing 0.4 multiplied by 480. And that comes up to a total of 192. So that means that there are 192 people visit the house and museum. So if I multiply those two numbers, I get an answer of 2,400. Then if I work out 3/8, so I've got to do 3/8 of 480. So for that, if I then do 3/8, just type that into my calculator as a fraction or a division multiplied by 480, that should give me an answer of 180. And then multiply those numbers together and I get 1440. Now after this, we can then work out is that there are 480 people altogether. So to work out this number here, I do 480 minus 67 minus 192 minus 180, and that comes up to a total of 41. And then if I multiply those two numbers together, I get a total of 287. So from this, what I can then do is work out the total price, the total income, which is going to be 2400 plus 1,440 plus 287, and it comes up to a total of £4,127, and there is my final answer. Now, if you did complete the Venn diagram rather, then the correct value should have is 41 there, 192 in the middle, and 180 in the house only. So that would be there, but it doesn't say you have to use it. It says you may use a Venn diagram. So if you've managed to work out using the table, then that would be absolutely fine as well for the 5 marks. Moving on to question 27, it says the heel of a shoe exerts a pressure of 198 pounds per square inch. Convert this pressure into kilograms per square centimetre. And so here we've got our units. Now, what I would suggest that you do is to write this as a fraction. So I've got 198, and that is pounds over 1 square inch. So 1 square inch. Now, in terms of the weight, I want to convert that into kilograms. So what I then need to do is I need to multiply that number by 0.45. And if I do that, I get an answer of 89.1. I then need to convert the 1 square inch into centimetre square, and I do that by multiplying by 6.25, in which I get an answer of 1 times 6.25, which is of course 6.25. Then if I type this all into my calculator, 89.1 divided by 6.25, I should get an answer of 14.256. Moving on to question 28, it says that 6 positive numbers have a mean of 10 and a range of 19. It says 4 of the numbers are 12, 7, 15 and 3. Work out the other 2 numbers. Now for this, it's worth 3 marks. So for this, I would say the first thing you want to do is work out the total sum of the 6 numbers. Now for this, we multiply 10 by the number of numbers, which is 6. So the 6 numbers have to add up to 60. Then if I work out the total sum of the 4 given numbers, then that's going to be 12 plus 7 plus 15 plus 3, which gives me an answer of 37. So that means that the two numbers, or the two new numbers, add to equal the difference between those two numbers, which is 23. Now, so those two numbers added together give me 23, but I've then got to remember that the range, which is the biggest number minus the smallest number, has to equal 19. So I've got to remember that whatever two numbers that I choose to add up 23, I take the bigger number out of the 6 numbers, take away the smallest number out of the 6 numbers, and I've got to make sure that it equals 19. Now the possible combination you're going to have of the correct answer are going to be 2 and 21. 2 plus 21 equals 23, and 21 take away 2 gives me 19. So that satisfies all the conditions. Moving on to question 29, it says that a solid shape is drawn on isometric paper. It says on the centimeter grid, draw the elevation of the shape from A. So if I just, now you don't have to do this in the exam, but I strongly suggest that sometimes shading helps. Now you need to make sure that the orientation of what you draw is exactly the same as what's pictured in the diagram. So here I've got an orange square of 2 by 2. Now again, strongly recommend that you do use a ruler. Again, I'm not going to try and keep this video for too long. And then I've got a 2 by 1 rectangle attached to it, which looks like this. So as long as you've got a square of 2 by 2 and a rectangle attached to it of 2 by 1, it looks something like this, then that would be absolutely fine. So most students would probably have drawn their diagram like this, hopefully with a ruler, and so that it produces straight lines. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. For B, it says on the grid, draw a plan of the shape. So for this, we're looking for the aerial view. So that's the top view. And if I go back to the diagram, I'm looking at this view here for B, and it's going to represent a P-shaped. So that's going to be 3, 2, 2. So it should look something like that, where that's 3, that's 5, that's 2, that's 2, that's 1, that's 3. Question 30 says Eric thinks of a prime number between 20 and 30. His number is x% of 125. Work out one possible value of x. So for this, the first thing we need to do is establish what are the prime numbers between 20 and 30, and that's going to be 23 or 29. Now from this second point here, and what we've got is we've got this value divided by 125 multiplied by 100 is either going to equal 23, or this mystery number of x is going to be 125 divided by 125 times by 100, which equals 29. So these are our values of x. So what we need to do is do a bit of rearranging. Now you don't need to do both, you only need to do one of these, as it says here. So if you do both, you might lose marks, and make sure you're only doing one of these. So for this, it's going to be 23 divided by 100 multiplied by 125 equals x, and that's going to give you an answer of 18.4. Or if you did the second option of using 29, that's going to be 29 divided by 100 multiplied by 125 equals x, and that gives me a value of 23.2. So again, you either want to write 18.4 or 23.2, but not both. Make sure that you're only writing one possible answer. Then moving on to question 31, which is our last question. It says part of a regular polygon with 15 sides is shown. Work out the size of an interior angle. So the formula for the interior angle of a regular polygon is 180 n minus 2 all divided by n, where n equals the number of sides. So all I need to do is then substitute n equals 15 into this formula. So I've got 18 times 15 minus 2 all divided by 15, and that gives me an answer of 2340 divided by 15, which gives me an answer of 156 degrees, which kind of makes sense because this is an obtuse angle and I've got an obtuse answer. So it's all looking good. And that concludes the end of this paper. Now, as always, I'll include the individual grade boundaries of this paper 3 foundation paper in the description below. And if you've completed paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3, you can then see what your overall grade is by comparing your result to the overall grade boundaries of this series.